everyone. I'm pleased to be here alongside leaders from Axiom Space, NASA, SpaceX, and the 45th Weather Squadron to provide updates following the Ax-4 Launch Readiness Review. This review assessed the status of the Falcon 9 rocket, Dragon spacecraft, mission hardware, and overall readiness for launch. Due to high winds in the ascent corridor, we are now targeting no earlier than Wednesday, June 11th at 8 a.m. Eastern Time for the launch of Ax-4. Commander Peggy Whitson of the U.S., pilot Shubhanshu Shukla of India, and the two mission specialists, Sławomir Usański-Wisniewski of Poland and Tibor Kapu of Hungary, will dock to the space station at approximately 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, June 12th. Today, we will hear from Alan Flynt, who is the Chief of Mission Services at Axiom Space, Dana Weigel, NASA's International Space Station Program Manager, William Gerstenmaier, Vice President of Build and Flight Reliability at SpaceX, and Jimmy Taeger, Launch Weather Officer for the U.S. Space Force, 45th Weather Squadron. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alan Flynt from Axiom Space.
Thank you, Alexis. Building on the momentum of our previous three missions, we are honored to continue our partnership with NASA and SpaceX as we prepare to launch Axiom Mission 4. The Ax-4 crew represents the very best of international collaboration, dedication, and human potential. Over the past 10 months, these astronauts have trained with focus and determination, each of them exceeding the required training to ensure mission safety, scientific excellence, and operational excellence. From safety protocols to complex payload operations and scientific research, the Ax-4 crew has embraced every phase with professionalism and purpose. They are not only prepared to live and work aboard the International Space Station, but will make significant contributions to the mission and the global community it represents. Yesterday, the crew successfully completed a dry run that confirmed our systems, teams, and procedures are ready to support the launch. During the 14 days aboard the orbiting laboratory, the Ax-4 crew will conduct approximately 60 experiments representing the scientific ambitions of 31 nations. For India, Poland, and Hungary, this mission will realize the return to human spaceflight as they launch national astronauts for the first time in more than 40 years and carry out their first mission on board the International Space Station. It is a powerful reminder of what we can achieve when we work together across borders, disciplines, and cultures. The Ax-4 crew and the Axiom Space team are ready for launch. Go Ax-4. I'm going to hand it over to Dana now.
All right, thank you, Alan, and thank you all for joining us today and for your interest in this upcoming mission. With the successful completion of today's Launch Readiness Review, Station is ready for the two-week Axiom 4 mission. This will be the fourth private astronaut mission to Station, with the last mission, Axiom 3, in January of 2024. As Alan mentioned, the crew will participate in around 60 science investigations on board, representing 31 different countries, with more than 24 of those experiments sponsored by the ISS National Laboratory. This mission will launch the first ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, astronaut to the station, enabling joint onboard collaborations between NASA and the Indian Space Agency. The collaboration delivers on a commitment to send the first ISRO astronaut to the station as part of a joint effort between NASA and the Indian Space Agency, and was highlighted by President Trump and Prime Minister Modi during the Prime Minister's recent visit to Washington, D.C. Last February. As part of the NASA and ISRO collaboration on this upcoming mission, the space agencies are participating in 5 joint science investigations and 2 outreach demonstrations. Science investigations include studying microalgae, sprouting salad seeds, tardigrade survival adaptations, muscle repair, and assessing electronic displays. This mission also carries the first astronauts from Poland and Hungary to visit the International Space Station. From Axiom 1 through Axiom 4, we have welcomed 14 different private astronaut crew members representing 11 different nations, showcasing how private astronaut missions truly expand access to space station for more people and for more nations. When Dragon docks, there will be 5 spacecraft aboard Space Station and 11 crew members living and working on station for a total of 288 visitors since 1998. We're also excited to welcome Peggy Whitson back to station. This will be her fifth spaceflight to the International Space Station. She flew 3 long-duration NASA ISS expedition missions. And of course, this is her second mission with Axiom. In my earlier career, when I was a spacewalk officer and also as a flight director, Peggy and I worked closely together with some of the more complex periods of station's assembly and then through its completion and the ramp into the full research and utilization. So it's a pleasure to get to work with Peggy again. She's made some substantial impacts to Space Station, and now she's helping to lay the foundation for future commercial missions. NASA developed a framework for these private astronaut missions to allow industry to carry the responsibility for launch, free flight, and the landing phases of the mission. NASA's responsibility for these missions is really during the integrated operations phase, which is when the Dragon vehicle gets within proximity to Space Station, and then it ends shortly after Dragon departs. This is a really incredible time for human spaceflight, with more opportunities to access space and to grow a thriving commercial economy in low Earth orbit. NASA remains committed to supporting this commercial effort by leveraging our decades of expertise to help industry gain the experience needed to train and manage crews, to conduct research, and to develop future destinations. These private astronaut missions are a key part of this effort. It provides companies with hands-on opportunities to refine their capabilities and to build partnerships that'll shape the future of low Earth orbit. We're looking forward to a successful launch and to welcoming Peggy, Schutz, Suave, and Taeger to ISS. And with that, I'll hand it over to Gerst.
Human spaceflight's really core to SpaceX's ultimate mission, and flying crew safely is always our top priority. Spaceflight is really hard, and we're learning every day. The more we fly, the more we learn. On Saturday, Dragon and Falcon rolled out, and we went vertical on the launch pad ahead of the teams participating in the rehearsal of launch day activities, as Alan talked about. Shortly, the dry dress was very successful. We completed the Falcon 9 static fire, but we discovered a few things during the static fire that we had to go take a look at. We found a LOX leak that we previously had seen on this booster during its entry on its last mission, and discovered that we had not fully repaired the booster during refurbishment, or we didn't find the leak and didn't get it corrected. We've now gone out to the launch pad. We're continuing to troubleshoot that. We should get that completed today, and we will have that back in configuration. And we're installing a purge that will essentially mitigate the leak if it still continues, if we see it on launch day. So we'll be fully ready to go fly. We also discovered an engine 5 thrust vector control problem, and we're going to change out the components associated with that. In fact, they're already changed out now, and we'll be complete with all our work this evening, and we'll be ready to support launch as early as tomorrow. Again, I think this shows the difficulty of getting ready. You can always be prepared, but doing the testing, doing the dry runs, doing the activities with the crew to make sure we are really ready is tremendously important, because we always learn something. This is the first flight for this Dragon capsule, and I can't think of a better way for this capsule to enter the fleet than by flying this international crew that was described by the others in this room. It's pretty special to see this new capsule fly this international crew. We've also made changes to the Dragon, and we've improved food processing and storage areas. We've improved the stair latch retention design. We changed several of the propulsion components to make them reliable and more reusable. So this isn't just the same Dragon capsule we've been flying. We've actually made some improvements and actually made it better to continue to keep flying safely. So far this year, SpaceX teams have flown 3 Dragon missions, 2 of which were human spaceflight missions, with all of them launching within 38 days of one another. And while we were working on those, the teams were also looking ahead and preparing for Axiom 4. So this is a very, very busy time for us. And I think one of the benefits of flying frequently and having a fleet of spacecraft is that it gives us the opportunity to review data regularly. And it allows us to look for data, look for small things, find things, improve things, and continue to fly safe. I think when you start assuming things are easy and you stop looking and you start just assuming things will go well, that's when trouble occurs, and we're not in that mode. We're continuing to learn and make sure that we're really ready to go fly. This will be the second flight for this Falcon 9 booster. It previously launched on a Starlink flight. This booster then will be turned around and used for the Crew 11 flight later this summer. Again, thanks to NASA, Axiom, and the partners on this mission, ESA, India, Poland, and Hungary, and thanks for their trust and close collaboration on this Axiom 4 mission. Now I'll turn it over to Jimmy Taeger from the Weather Office.
Hey, thanks, Gerst. All right, so currently we have surface high pressure to the southeast of central Florida. And what that does is typically produces southwest flow across our area. Now, over the next couple days, that surface high pressure is going to move further to the north. That's going to switch our primary flow to more southeast. Southeast flow does tend to create some more isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms in the morning times. So even though the POV, the probability violation, was lower for tomorrow's initial attempt, the next attempt on Wednesday, the probability violation does increase a bit to 20% for the cumulus cloud layer rule and flight through precipitation. And then as we get into Thursday, the backup opportunity, POV increases just a little bit more to about 25%. So it's on the lower end, but it does look like there could be a possibility of some isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms near the area at the launch time. But for the ascent corridor, even though winds are pretty strong right now, it does look like winds are going to be improving over the next couple days. So as we get into Wednesday, winds will be even better, and Thursday, even better than Wednesday. The one thing we are going to be keeping a close eye on, though, is possible showers and thunderstorms along that ascent corridor. It does look like they could be an issue all the days, so that's something we'll be keeping an eye on. But at least the winds look to be improving for that ascent corridor as we get into mid to late week. That's it for weather. Send it back to Alexis.
Thank you, Jimmy. And now we will have 30 minutes to answer questions from the media. If you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature or submit your questions through the Q&A function. If you are joining on your phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself when called on. Also, please state your name, outlet, and to whom your question is directed. The first question will be for Will Robinson-Smith.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thanks for all the information with this update. Question to Bill Gerstenmaier. Given that this is the first flight of this new Dragon spacecraft, I wonder what things in particular are you going to be looking for as far as performance, both in these final day or so before flight and through the ascent up to the space station through docking, and then just quickly secondarily. Believe that the Dragon fleet is still on course for certification up to 15 flights. Wonder if you can give an update on how that's progressing. Thanks.
Okay. Again, I think the things we'll be watching is just normal performance of the vehicle, especially thermal systems, life support systems, those kind of things to make sure they're all operating correctly. The propulsion system is pretty much the same. We've done some things to make it more reliable, less corrosion potential, and more reusable. Those things we'll watch, but again, I think those are all pretty good. We also will be landing in the Pacific Ocean, which is fairly new to us. We've landed one crew there and a cargo vehicle there. So we'll be preparing operations for that in California, and we've been having the teams actually practice that and get used to those operations. In terms of the certification activity, maybe I'll turn that to Dana, and she can talk a little bit about where they are with the process of certifying Dragons for additional flights.
So you're right. We're going through a process of getting comfortable with a higher reuse beyond what we have today. And so the team is in the process of working through that. SpaceX does a great job with hardware tests. So the great thing is they have a lot of actual test and performance data. It takes us a bit of time to go through that and make sure that we understand the data, but we are still working through that. I don't have specific schedule off the top of my head for you for timeline, but things are going well as we work through that.
Great, thank you, Dana. Next up is Richard Turbo.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent. Yeah, Richard True with Orlando Sentinel. This is a question about Axiom Space's future plans beyond this mission 4. I know, and I guess this could also be for Dana, but when do we expect to hear the approval for the next commercial visit to the space station? But also beyond those types of visits, what is the track for Axiom Station's first module to fly to the station? That's it.
I will take the first part of that. We have an active and ongoing solicitation right now for private astronaut missions 5 and 6. The hope with those missions is that I can find a flight opportunity for one of them around mid 26-ish, mid to late 26, and then the next one would be in 27. So that's an open and active ongoing solicitation.
Yeah, and from Axiom's perspective, can confirm that we are intending to compete for the opportunities for PAM 5 and 6 that Dana just spoke about. All these PAM missions we see as highly valuable and informative for Axiom and our preparation for flying our space station, which is currently targeted for our first element launch, still tracking to 2027 for that.
Thanks.
Next, Ryan Catton.
Hi, thank you. My question's for Gerst. I'm sure we all saw the comments from Elon Musk last week. I'm just curious whether those now redacted comments kind of speak to SpaceX's eagerness to move on from Crew Dragon anytime soon and move towards a crewed Starship capability. Is that something SpaceX is actually looking at, or were those comments more, let's say, emotional? Thank you.
I can just say, as I said in my opening remarks, this has been a very busy time with us and Dragon, and we've flown a lot of Dragon flights, including two crew flights. We're busily preparing for CRS-33 for NASA cargo flight, and we're busy preparing for Crew 11. So I think you can see what we're doing in our preparation and our dedication to human spaceflight, and that's the way I'll answer that. And I would say also, you know, in this environment, it's tremendously important for us to really stay focused on this mission. You know, I described to you how hard these missions are. And when you get complacent and you assume it's easy, problems can occur. With this Axiom mission, we absolutely need to avoid a lot of this stuff that's happening on the outside and really stay focused on what we're doing today and keep the teams focused on looking at the vehicles, looking at the procedures, looking at the process, make sure that this international crew can have a great time on board Space Station, do tremendous science and research, and return safely home to their families.
Thank you, Gerst. Next in line is Stephen Clark.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Stephen Clark from Ars Technica. My question is also for Gerst. I'm curious what's going on in the factory in Hawthorne now that you've produced your final new Crew Dragon. I know you're still producing trunks, but the factory space that's cleared out with the final Dragon pressure vessel coming out of the factory, what do you plan to use that factory area for now?
We still do a lot of production of panels for the Dragon capsules, as well as heat shields and other things. We still do a lot of testing of components. So there's a pretty still busy activity occurring with manufacturing for Dragon equipment. Also, we're scheduled to fly approximately 170 flights this year. So that means we're producing 170 second stages and 170 MVAC engines per year. That keeps us pretty busy. And then also we have 8 more new Falcon 9 rockets that are scheduled to be manufactured before the end of this year. So I would say we're pretty committed to the space business. We're committed to flying humans in space and doing it safely. I think you think of a lot of us as reuse, but we're also building a lot of new stuff, and that we can learn from what we get from reuse. Getting the hardware back lets us see how the hardware performs. Then we can make design changes and make those changes into the next version of the vehicle that comes out of the factory. So again, I think we're pretty busy in Hawthorne, just keeping up with the activities we have planned.
And now we have Hubert Kayak.
Hello, do you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. What is your current confidence level in in percent terms that the rocket will launch on June 10th? First question. And second question, how long is the launch window for the Ax-4 mission? And does the rocket need to lift off by June 15th, or could the launch be postponed further by a week or even longer? Thank you.
The weather.
Yeah, the current plan is for June 11th at 8, as was said at the beginning of the press conference. And again, maybe the weather officer can answer the weather question. I think he gave you the percentages for weather. I think we'll have the vehicle ready, the crew's trained, the cargo's loaded. I think we're ready from a hardware standpoint. It's just kind of waiting for the weather to get there.
In terms of launch opportunities, we have launch opportunities all the way through June 30th, and then the Russians have a Progress cargo vehicle that will be undocking and a new one coming up and docking. So we'll have a brief cutout for that, and then a brief cutout for high solar beta, and then we pick up again like in the middle of July or second week in July, really. So plenty of opportunities to fly the vehicle.
And now we have Oscar Gorzinski.
Hi, Polish, Oskar Gorzyński from the Polish press agency. My question is somewhat related, but if you could talk more about the weather conditions, because what I got from it is that basically, the few upcoming days are all kind of sketchy, and still there's opportunity to something can go wrong, like maybe not the winds but the precipitation. Can you expand on that?
It's always fun forecasting in Central Florida. You never, it's quite dicey sometimes. So basically, for the morning time period on Wednesday the 11th and also Thursday the 12th, there's just a possibility of seeing some isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms. Typically, with the pattern that's going to be set up, we can sometimes have showers and thunderstorms right off the coast first in the mornings, and then later in the day, they tend to push further inland with the sea breeze. So there's a possibility that some could be just off the coast. It could also be right over the launch pad, which is why there's also that flight through precipitation risk. But it doesn't look like it's going to be widespread. So the POV, that probability violation number, is on the lower end, 20% for Wednesday the 11th and 25% for Thursday the 12th. For the ascent corridor, winds are pretty strong right now, but they are going to start to weaken over the next couple days. So that does look better by Wednesday and especially into Thursday. And our precipitation and lightning risk is just going to continue because we have a stalled boundary that's pretty close to where the ascent corridor is. And there's just going to be some lingering showers and thunderstorms. So it'll depend upon when it gets closer where those currently are. But it doesn't look like that boundary is going to go anywhere at this time.
Thanks, Jimmy. And it looks like we have one final question from Marcia Smith.
Thanks so much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, my question is for Dana. Could you give us an update on the supply situation on ISS? What's the status of the supplies, and when is CRS-33 going to launch, and when is the next Cygnus launch?
Yeah, good question. Let's see, probably the last time that we talked to you guys, we probably were talking about our manifest for SpaceX 32 and the recovery after we had to slip out the Northrop Grumman 22 flight. And so we actually did change our manifest back then. So we're in pretty good shape with food and consumables and all of the normal resupply. We are tracking an end of summer launch date for SpaceX 33. That specific date will really be dependent on when we actually get Crew 11 off the ground. We've got a serial kind of sequence of events, though, so we'll fly it as soon as we can after Crew 11. And then we're working with Northrop Grumman to pull up their next flight, the NG-23 mission, which originally we were going to fly in early 26. We'll be pulling that up to mid-September. So plenty of cargo capability there on the horizon, and looking forward to having those flights on board. We've also got the first Japanese HTV-X vehicle slated to fly in late fall, so that's another resupply opportunity that we have.
Thank you, Dana. Well, that's all we have time for today, and thank you so much for joining us. For any follow-up questions, please send them to media@axiomspace.com, and go Ax-4.